The night my family banned me from my mother's birthday celebration, they thought they were humiliating me. They had no idea they were accidentally sending me the one piece of evidence that would expose what they had been doing behind my back. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 35 years old, and for most of my life, I was the daughter my family called whenever something needed fixing. Bills, paperwork, appointments, tax problems, even the occasional emergency when someone else had made a mistake. But when my mother's 60th birthday arrived, suddenly I was the one person nobody wanted around. 3 days before the party, my older brother Daniel called me. "You're not coming Saturday." I laughed because I thought he was joking. Very funny. "I'm serious." There was something cold in his voice. "Mom wants this to be a peaceful night. You've been difficult lately, and we're not dealing with another scene." A scene? You know exactly what I mean. I didn't. But before I could ask, he added, "Just stay home, Claire." Then he hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my phone. No invitation. No explanation. Just a decision that had apparently been made without me. My mother didn't call. My father didn't call. My younger sister Emily didn't call. Nobody did. And that hurt more than the exclusion itself. Because this wasn't some distant relative's party. It was my mother's 60th birthday. I'd spent months helping my father organize it. I had booked the restaurant. I had designed the invitations. I had even paid the deposit when my father said his card wasn't working. Now I wasn't welcome. I wanted to call my mother. I wanted to ask her why. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe, somewhere deep down, I was finally tired of begging people to explain why they kept pushing me away. So I stayed home. Saturday evening came. At 7:43 p.m., I was sitting alone on my couch when my phone buzzed. A video. No message. Just a 28-second clip. It had been sent from my sister Emily's number. I almost ignored it. Then I noticed something strange. The video wasn't filmed at the restaurant. It showed my parents' dining room. My father was sitting at the table. My mother was standing beside him. Daniel was there too, and spread across the table were several documents. My mother looked nervous. My father looked angry. Then Daniel said something that made my entire body go still. "Once she signs this, Claire can't stop us." The video ended. I watched it again. Then again began to shake. What were they talking about? What was my mother signing? And why had Daniel said my name? I immediately called Emily. She didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. Then a message appeared. "Wrong send. Delete that video." I stared at those 5 words. Wrong send. My heart started pounding. If it was harmless, why did they need me to delete it? I opened the video again and slowed it down. At the 17-second mark, I noticed something on the table. A blue folder. My father's handwriting was visible across the top. Morgan Family Trust. I froze. I'd heard that name before. Years earlier, my grandfather had created a trust for my mother. My parents had always told me it was complicated and essentially worthless because of old debts and legal restrictions. But now there was a document sitting on their dining room table, and Daniel had just said, "Once she signs this, Claire can't stop us." I replayed the video one more time. This time, I noticed something I'd missed. My mother's hand was trembling. She wasn't signing something willingly. She looked frightened. I grabbed my coat. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she whispered, "Claire." "Mom, what are you signing?" Silence. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Don't come here." "Why?" "Because your brother is watching the house." I stood completely still. "What?" My mother's voice dropped even lower. "And Claire." She took a shaky breath. "If Daniel finds out I called you, we're both in danger." The call suddenly disconnected. I stared at the dark screen. 3 days earlier, I thought my family had simply decided they didn't want me at my mother's birthday. Now I realized something far worse. They hadn't excluded me from the celebration. They had excluded me because they were afraid I would discover what was happening inside that house. The next morning, I woke up with one question pounding through my head. What was my mother being forced to sign? I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that video. My father at the table, Daniel standing behind him, my mother trembling. And that sentence, "Once she signs this, Claire can't stop us." I could have gone straight to the police. But I had one problem. I didn't know what crime had been committed yet. And worse, I didn't know who I could trust. So I called the one person in my family who had never been good at keeping secrets. My Aunt Laura. She answered on the fourth ring. Claire, were you at Mom's house last night? Silence. That silence told me everything. You were. I shouldn't be talking to you. Why? Because your brother told everyone you're causing problems. I clenched my jaw. I'm not asking about me. I'm asking about Mom. Another pause. Then Laura whispered, your grandfather's trust. My heart stopped. What about it? I thought you knew. Knew what? She lowered her voice. Your mother never lost control of it. I stood up. What does that mean? It means the trust is worth far more than your parents ever told you. I stared at the wall. How much? I don't know exactly. Aunt Laura? She sighed. Several properties, investments, some commercial land. Your grandfather put everything into that trust before he died. I felt dizzy. For years, my parents had told me the trust was practically worthless. They had said my grandfather's debts had swallowed most of it. They had said there was nothing left. But apparently that wasn't true. Why would Mom be signing something now? I don't know. Who benefits? She went quiet again. Then she said, Daniel. The answer landed like a punch. My brother. The same brother who had told me not to attend our mother's birthday. The same brother standing beside her in that video. I ended the call and immediately contacted a lawyer I knew through work. I sent him screenshots from the video. He called me less than 20 minutes later. Claire, don't confront your family yet. Why does everyone keep telling me that? Because if this involves the trust, whoever is pressuring your mother may be trying to get her to sign away control of the assets. So what do I do? Find out exactly what she's being asked to sign. I drove to my parents' neighborhood. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked 2 streets away and watched the house. At 11:16 a.m., Daniel walked out. He looked around before getting into his car. Then something caught my attention. A second vehicle was parked behind the house. A black sedan I'd never seen before. A man stepped out. He carried a leather briefcase. My phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Laura. Claire, don't go home. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. Daniel knows you saw the video. My heart began pounding. I looked toward my parents' house. The man with the briefcase had disappeared inside. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Nobody spoke. Hello? Silence. Then a man's voice finally came through. You need to stop asking questions. I froze. Who is this? You're making things worse for your mother. How do you know about my mother? The man ignored the question. Go home, Claire. The call ended. I sat there gripping the steering wheel. Someone outside my family knew I was investigating. Someone who had access to information about my mother. And suddenly the video wasn't just evidence. It was a warning. I started the car, but before I pulled away, I looked back at my parents' house one last time. The upstairs curtain moved. Someone was standing behind it, watching me. And then I realized something that made my blood run cold. The person watching me wasn't Daniel. It was my mother. I drove away from my parents' house, but I couldn't stop thinking about the figure behind the upstairs curtain. My mother had been watching me, which meant one of two things. Either she was trying to warn me, or she was trying to make sure I left. I called her. No answer. Again, nothing. Then, at 12:04 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Meet me alone. Old library. 2 p.m. No explanation. No signature. Just those 6 words. I almost went immediately. Then I remembered the warning from the unknown caller. Go home, Claire. Someone wanted me frightened. So I did the opposite. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and told him where I was going. At exactly 2, I walked into the old library downtown. My mother was already sitting in the back corner. She looked exhausted. Her hair was messy. Her hands were shaking. Mom. She stood. Sit down. I pulled out the chair. What is happening? She looked around before answering. Your grandfather's trust is worth $12 million. I stopped. 12 million? She nodded. Maybe more now. I stared at her. All these years you told us it was worthless. I lied. The word hit harder than the number. Why? Because your father and Daniel wanted access to it. I leaned forward. What does Daniel have to do with this? My mother looked down. Everything. She explained that after my grandfather died, control of the trust had been placed in her hands. She was the only person who could authorize certain changes, but there was a condition. She could never transfer the trust to another person unless an independent trustee approved it. That sounds like protection. It was. Then how are they trying to take it? She hesitated. Your father has debts. How much? More than you know. And Daniel, he started a business using borrowed money. I stared at her. Is the business failing? She nodded. Badly. Suddenly, everything made sense. The birthday party, my exclusion, the documents, Daniel's sentence. Once she signs this, Claire can't stop us. But one question still bothered me. Why did Daniel say I could stop them? My mother looked directly into my eyes. Because your grandfather named you as the successor. I couldn't speak. What? If something happens to me, you become the next person responsible for protecting the trust. I leaned back. My entire body felt numb. That's why they wanted me away. Not because I was embarrassing, because I was in the way. My mother reached across the table. Claire, you need to understand something. Daniel isn't trying to steal from me. Then what? He's trying to make me sign papers that will make it look like I willingly gave him control. I remembered the video. That's what he was doing. Yes. Then why didn't you stop him? She looked at me. Because he threatened your father. My anger disappeared. What did he threaten? My mother started crying. He has proof that your father committed fraud years ago. I stared at her. What kind of fraud? Financial. Is it real? She nodded. Daniel found the records. I sat silently. For years, I'd believed my father was simply unlucky with money. Apparently, I'd been wrong. But then my mother said something that changed everything. Daniel didn't discover those records by accident. What do you mean? He was looking for them. Why? She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I opened it. It was a copy of an old financial agreement. At the bottom was a signature. Daniel's. But the date was impossible. He had signed it 6 years before he'd supposedly started investigating our father's finances. I looked at my mother. Why would Daniel have this? I don't know. I stared at the signature. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. Claire, don't sign or authorize anything. I found something you need to see. Attached was a photograph, a bank statement. The account holder wasn't my mother. It wasn't my father. It wasn't Daniel. It was a company I'd never heard of, and the largest transfer on the page had happened 3 weeks before my mother's birthday. My mother saw my expression. What is it? I turned the phone toward her. She stared at the screen, then whispered, That company. What? I've seen that name before. Where? Her face suddenly went pale. In Daniel's office. I looked at her. Mom, what did he tell you that company was? She swallowed, then said, He told me it was the company buying our family property. I stared at the bank statement again. The company wasn't buying our property. It was already receiving our money. And whoever was behind that account had been taking it long before my mother ever sat down to sign those papers. The company on the bank statement wasn't buying my family's property. It was buying something much more dangerous. Silence. I stared at the account number while my mother sat across from me, trembling. Mom, I said slowly, how much money has been transferred to this company? She shook her head. I don't know. Then we find out. I called my lawyer immediately. He answered on the second ring. Claire, I've been digging through the records. What is this company? That's what I was trying to tell you. His voice became quieter. It was created 9 months ago. By whom? We're still tracing the ownership. I looked at my mother. Then my phone buzzed. A new email. It contained a scanned document. My father's signature appeared at the bottom. But the document was dated 2 years earlier. It authorized a transfer of family assets to the same company. I felt sick. Mom, Dad signed this. She looked at it. No. You recognize his signature? Of course. Then why are you saying no? Because your father never told me about this. That was when I realized the truth was even bigger than the trust. Someone had been moving money for years, and my parents hadn't both known about it. I asked my lawyer to investigate the company's ownership. 10 minutes later, he called back. Claire, I found the registered agent. Who? Daniel's former business partner. My blood ran cold. Are you sure? Yes. My mother covered her mouth. Daniel has been planning this for years. I looked at her. No. She shook her head. You don't understand. What? He couldn't have done it alone. The room went silent. What are you saying? My mother looked toward the window. Your father helped him. I felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath me. My father? She nodded. Years ago, your father became desperate. Daniel promised he could fix everything. They started moving money between accounts. And you knew? Not at first. Then when did you find out? After your grandfather died. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My entire family had been hiding a financial scheme from me, and the $12 million trust was the final prize. My lawyer suddenly interrupted. Claire, there's one more thing. What? The trust has a protection clause. I waited. If anyone attempts to transfer the assets through deception or coercion, the entire trust can be frozen. I looked at my mother. Then why are they rushing you? Because they know that. Everything clicked. The birthday party wasn't a birthday party. It was a deadline. They wanted my mother to sign before anyone could investigate, and they needed me away from the house because I was the successor who could stop the transfer. I suddenly understood why Daniel had called me difficult, why my mother had uninvited me, why they had tried to make me feel ashamed. It wasn't about drama. It was about keeping me quiet. Then my phone rang. Daniel, I answered. What do you want? His voice was surprisingly calm. Mom told you, didn't she? I froze. Told me what? That she can't protect you anymore. I stood up. What did you do to her? He laughed softly. You still think I'm the villain? You've been stealing from the family. No. His voice hardened. I've been fixing what Dad destroyed. You created a company to move our money. You have no idea what you're talking about. I have the bank records. Silence. Then he said, Where are you? I didn't answer. Claire? Still nothing. His voice dropped. You should have stayed home. The call ended. I looked at my mother. She was crying. Then headlights appeared outside the library. A black SUV pulled to the curb. My mother grabbed my arm. That's Daniel. I looked through the window. Daniel stepped out, but he wasn't alone. The same man with the leather briefcase was beside him. My heart began pounding. Mom, we're leaving. She shook her head. No. What? She stood. I have something you don't know. What? She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. I copied this before they realized I knew what they were doing. I stared at it. What is it? Everything. Everything. Every transfer, every conversation, every document. I took the drive. Why didn't you give this to me before? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I was afraid. The library door opened. Daniel walked inside. He smiled when he saw us. Mom? Then he looked at me. You really should have stayed away. I tightened my grip around the flash drive. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because Daniel thought he had finally cornered us. He didn't know what my mother had just handed me. And he was about to discover that the daughter he tried to erase had enough evidence to destroy his entire plan. Daniel walked into the library like he owned the place. The man with the briefcase followed him and quietly closed the door behind them. My mother immediately stood between us. Daniel, this has gone too far. He looked at her. No, Mom, it went too far when you decided to betray me. I tightened my grip around the flash drive in my pocket. Daniel noticed. His eyes dropped toward my hand. What did she give you? Nothing. He smiled. You've never been a good liar, Claire. I looked directly at him. Neither are you. His expression changed, just for a second. Then he laughed. You think a little flash drive is going to save you? No. I took my phone from my pocket. I think what's on it will. The smile disappeared. I had already sent a copy of everything to my lawyer. And before walking into the library, I'd scheduled another copy to be delivered to investigators if anything happened to me. Daniel didn't know that. He thought he still controlled the situation. That was his mistake. My lawyer had spent the previous hour organizing the evidence. Bank transfers, forged documents, company registrations, messages between Daniel and his former business partner, records showing money moved from family accounts into the shell company. And most importantly, a recording of Daniel pressuring my mother to sign away control of the trust. My mother looked at him. You lied to me. Daniel's jaw tightened. I was trying to protect this family. You stole from us. I saved Dad's business. You stole $12 million. Daniel slammed his hand against the table. You have no idea what I've sacrificed. I didn't flinch. You didn't sacrifice anything. He looked at me. You always thought you were better than me. No, I shook my head. I thought you were my brother. That silenced him. For a moment, he looked almost human. Then the door opened. 2 investigators walked inside. Daniel turned toward them. His face went completely pale. One of them said, "Daniel Morgan, we need to speak with you about several financial transactions." The man with the briefcase immediately stepped backward, but another officer entered behind him. There was nowhere to go. Daniel looked at me. "You called them?" "Yes." "When?" "Before I came here." He stared at me in disbelief. "You set me up." "No." I looked at my mother. "You did that yourself." The investigation moved quickly after that. The shell company was frozen. The trust was protected. The suspicious transfers were reviewed. And the evidence from the flash drive connected Daniel and his former business partner to years of financial activity they had tried to hide. My father was questioned too. He eventually admitted that he had known about the transfers. That confession hurt more than I expected. For years, I had believed my father was simply unlucky. He wasn't. He had made choices. And when those choices began destroying the family, Daniel had decided to make everything worse. But there was one final surprise. The lawyer handling my grandfather's trust discovered something none of us had known. My grandfather had anticipated exactly this kind of situation. The trust contained a clause stating that if anyone attempted to manipulate or illegally transfer its assets, the person responsible would lose any claim to the inheritance. Daniel had spent years trying to reach $12 million, and in the end, his own actions guaranteed he would receive nothing. My mother remained the legal trustee. The properties were protected. The money was recovered wherever possible. And Daniel had to face the consequences of what he'd done. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was my relationship with my mother. A few weeks later, she came to my apartment. She stood outside my door for almost a minute before knocking. When I opened it, she looked nervous. "I owe you an apology." I said nothing. She continued, "I told you that you were difficult." She looked down. "I told you that you caused problems." Her eyes filled with tears. "And I made you feel like you were the least important person in this family." I swallowed hard. "You did. I was wrong." That sentence was difficult for her, but she said it anyway. I was so afraid of losing everything that I pushed away the one person who was trying to protect us. I didn't suddenly forget everything. I didn't pretend the hurt had disappeared. But I finally understood something. My family hadn't rejected me because I was worthless. They had rejected me because my questions made their lives uncomfortable. And the moment I stopped accepting their version of reality, their entire story began to collapse. My mother's 60th birthday party never happened the way she'd planned. There was no grand celebration, no perfect family photograph, no carefully staged evening where everyone pretended everything was fine. Instead, months later, we had a small dinner at home. Just my mother, my father, Emily, and me. No expensive decorations, no performance, no pretending. My mother raised her glass. "To Claire." I smiled. She continued, "The daughter we almost lost because we were too afraid to listen." For once, nobody laughed nervously. Nobody changed the subject. I simply looked around the table, and I realized something I'd spent years trying to understand. Sometimes being pushed out of a family doesn't mean you are the problem. Sometimes you're pushed out because you're the one person who refuses to play along. 3 days before my mother's birthday, my family thought they had found a way to silence me. They banned me from the celebration. They called me difficult. They tried to keep me away from the house. But that accidental video showed me the truth. And the secret my mother hid on that tiny flash drive changed everything. They thought they were protecting $12 million. They were actually protecting a lie. And the daughter they tried hardest to exclude was the one person who could finally expose it.